And I think we are now live. Hello. Hello. We're now, hello. Hello, that's Gemma. Hello, and you're very welcome to a Broadsheet on the Telly special, a presidential hopeful mid-morning natter with Gemma O Doherty. And we've reached out to the other presidential hopefuls, and they'll hopefully be joining us over the next few days. We won't talk to the ones who have got their nominations, but we hope to be able to talk to people like Jimmy Smith and Kevin Sharkey, who are still out there looking for a nomination, including Gemma O Doherty, who was on the road yesterday. You were in Monaghan, Gemma, Kilkenny, and Offaly.
Yeah, very busy day yesterday.
Okay.
Set off fairly early from Monaghan. And I really enjoyed Monaghan, I have to say. We had a good debate for about an hour at least. And I felt that the councillors were very respectful and, were willing to hear what my manifesto is about. We discussed the case of Shane O'Farrell, who was killed in 2011 in Carrickmacross in a hit and run incident which could have been avoided if the Gardaí had been doing their jobs. This is a disgraceful case of injustice, and the treatment of the O'Farrell family has been despicable. Their fight for justice for Shane has just been second to none. Lucia in particular.
Yeah, Lucia. Just if anybody wants to follow up on if anybody wants to follow up on the O'Farrell story, there's a lot of good stuff on Broadsheet actually about it. Sorry, go on, Jen. Sorry.
Yes. So we discussed that, and we also discussed I mentioned Allo Mohan, who is a poultry farmer from Monaghan, who I'm working with at the moment, and he has exposed a lot of fraud within the agriculture sector. And is doing incredible work. We're looking at large sums of money that the Exchequer has been denied. And Allo Mohan he's just doing such a service for the Irish people. Now, it's not a subject I know a huge amount about, but I am very concerned about the plight of small farmers in Ireland. And as I've been traveling around recently, and talking to farmers on the ground and small businesses, I think they do feel that they are really being wiped out by this culture of globalization. So that's one of my concerns going forward for the presidency.
So that was Monaghan. You went to Kilkenny then. What time was that? That was mid-morning, wasn't it? About midday.
Kilkenny then was, I think I got there sort of mid-afternoon.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it was a long drive back to Dublin and then down to Kilkenny. So that's fine. I'm more than happy to do it. Yesterday, as your listeners probably know, there were 6 presentations on. So we had to decide how many we could get to. And unfortunately, I missed Fingal, Galway and Mayo.
I'm going to get to Fingal in a second. So in Kilkenny then, do you give the same address? Do you give the same address as you give in Monaghan, or is it?
I try to go to local authorities where I have done work.
Okay.
And in Kilkenny, I have done a lot of work, not necessarily to do with corruption, but I've done a lot of environmental work in Kilkenny. It's a county I love dearly, and even though I have no family connections there. But I do spend a lot of time there. I absolutely adore the archaeological and architectural heritage of the city.
Right.
So I have been involved in an environmental campaign there in relation to an industrial wind farm. We discussed that and other matters. And again, I have to say the reception was excellent. And then I travelled to Tullamore, where the reception was not great at all. And I felt that really corruption is a dirty word in Offaly County Council, certainly among some members who, really I felt were not taking on board the concerns of many citizens in relation to transparency and accountability in local government.
Okay, just to sort of recap then, because a lot of the focus was on Fingal yesterday afternoon. So at Tullamore, you turn up and then you give your address, and the reaction was very bad, or they reacted badly to your manifesto. Is that what?
Well, you see, for me, it all began in County Offaly, because 8 years ago, I started to investigate the case of Father Niall Malloy, and it was a person in Clara in County Offaly who asked me to look at that case. He was a former director of elections for Fine Gael. Now, at the time, I was an innocent abroad in terms of corruption within the Gardaí. I had no idea of how dysfunctional our police force were. And so I started to investigate that case, and eventually my investigation led to the reopening of the case, and it was described as the biggest cover-up in the history of the state in the Oireachtas. You know, Father Niall's murder is not the only case of homicide that has been covered up in County Offaly. Shane Toohey is another tragedy, and his family have been fighting for justice. And there are other cases that I've worked on in Offaly.
Can I just ask you, was it specifically the Father Malloy thing that was the resistance then in Kilkenny with, or sorry, in Offaly with that? With that particular story that you've been doing? Because I understand now there are parts of the Malloy family who are opposed to your candidacy or your nomination. So I just want to, I don't want to ambush you in any way, but was the pushback from that side, so to speak?
I have no idea, no. And I mean, I want to be very clear. When I do my work, I do it in the public interest. I don't do it for individuals per se. I do it because I don't want to live in a country where the police are corrupt and where murder is covered up. Murder is the most serious crime of all. So my investigations have generally been done independently of family members, especially in the case of Father Niall Malloy. And I will take responsibility for the justice campaign for Father Malloy. I spent many years going in and out of Dáil Éireann and Seanad Éireann trying to raise awareness about that case until such time politicians started to take it up. Eventually my work led, as I say, to the reopening of the case, and you know, that was just a pretense, really. They didn't really reopen it at all, but that was just a means to try and keep me quiet. But I continued then, and then eventually a review was set up by Alan Shatter, in which a lawyer was paid public money to carry out a review of the case, and the one person he didn't speak to was me. You know, so that was another shambolic exercise, in my opinion. And the chief suspect still walks our streets today.
The situation with parts of the Malloy family and also parts of the Boyle family, they've called for a boycott of Broadsheet because we're giving you a platform to speak. All of us presumably are just looking for the same thing in terms of all these cases, justice and the right person found, and closure for all these families. The sensitivities of the families. Do you feel that the search for justice overrides perhaps their sensitivities? I mean, I'm not trying to say it on a personal level, but just on an overall level.
I want to say, John, that people don't understand the background to the individuals who are trying to smear me in the Mary Boyle case and the Father Malloy case. People don't know the background to those individuals. I'm not going to go into that. But those individuals know why they're behaving in the way they do. But I must stress that everything I do as a journalist is done for the public and on behalf of the public. And if individuals within certain so-called justice campaigns want to attack me, they can do so. But they have their reasons for doing so, and they have their connections.
Okay, Gemma, but I would like to explore that a little bit, because firstly, I can't leave this hanging in the air. And secondly, I'll say it again, we're all looking for the same thing in terms of searching for justice in these cases, in these particular cases. Is the fallout in terms, in both cases, in terms of your theory of what happened rather than the conduct of the guards? Where is the rift?
Listen, John, I have to reiterate, okay? I do not do these cases on behalf of individual families, all right? Every family has people within it who would, the families, when they suffer tragedies, there's always, splits and difficulties. And that's why I have tried really not to get embroiled, especially with the Malloy and the Mary Boyle, these individuals that are causing trouble in the background. I think, I'd love to be able to give the full detail on this, but I'm not going to, because my job is, as a journalist, to get justice on behalf of the public and to expose corruption. But I'll finish now by saying that anyone who has a problem with the fact that a journalist is shining a light on murders that have been covered up really have very serious questions to answer. And as I say, the individuals involved have their own agendas. They do not, I believe, have the best interests of their loved ones at heart, and because they are bringing themselves and their families into disrepute. In the case of the Mary Boyle case, we know that Mary Boyle's mother has serious questions to answer. It is a family cover-up, according to the Gardaí, but it's also a Garda cover-up.
Well, this is, in Irish life, I think this is extremely, these areas are so sensitive, and the reaction has been so strong, and the reaction will be so strong to this as well. We're working on Broadsheet, and I think Alda would agree with me that we've seen so many cases of miscarriages of injustice. We've had the Morris Tribunal, we've had the various scandals. To look at cases like the Malloy case in the way you've looked at them, and to look at even the murder of Veronica Guerin in the way you've looked at it, I don't think they're particularly, even in journalistic terms, particularly radical opinions or thoughts, because I think many people felt the trial of Paul Ward, Charles Bowden particularly, his role was very, very, very questionable. And also in the Malloy case, there's so many anomalies that you've raised, and also the Justice from Father Malloy campaign raised, everybody has raised. But the pushback is so strong, Gemma, in terms, particularly in the last 24 hours regarding the Veronica Guerin thing, particularly from journalists. The journalists also, I've been around journalism for 30 years. Many people speak in these terms about the Veronica Guerin case. I'm very, very surprised. I think that the response seems to be quite disproportionate to many of the things you're saying.
Look, my allegiance, and I will keep repeating it ad nauseum, is to the truth and to the Irish people. That's where it begins and where it ends. I am not interested in tantrums and squabbles and all this nonsense going on in the mainstream media at the moment. I have a job to do. I have put myself forward for public service, and I am seeking a nomination to become President of Ireland. And if people have a problem with that, that's absolutely fine. But I'm doing that, and my allegiance is to the truth. My journalism has never been challenged. I have never been sued. Everything that I have put into the public domain as a journalist has been verifiable, and I've had several murder investigations reopened. A long investigation that I did on Terenure College has resulted in a file going to the DPP. Where is the media coverage on that? They normally cover cases of individuals where files have gone to the DPP. Deafening silence. What's wrong with the media in our country?
Well, I felt that, and we spoke last Thursday, and I said that your speech about media, about corruption in Irish life, but particularly about corruption in Irish media, struck a chord with a lot of people. It was the most shared item that we had on the site for the entire summer. but there was no analysis done in the newspapers of that speech, which is quite nuanced in many ways, because you know, this has got very personal, but it's not the individual journalist as such. It's the system. I mean, if you're working for the Irish Independent over the last 8 years, you could never really write about Dennis O'Brien, you know. But to write about Dennis O'Brien, you would probably lose your job. That's one thing. But they seem to be extending that onto Twitter now, that conversations that I would have had with many of these people, that they would sort of cast out on the Veronica Guerin trial like that. But they're adopting a position that's totally sort of almost like nothing to see here. There's nothing, you know, I find the whole thing very, very depressing and a bit sad.
Yeah, you know, the way I look at it is, John, you know, I don't have any sympathy for these individual journalists who are behaving disgracefully at the moment. The job of a journalist is to hold power to account. Full stop, okay? If you are a milkman and you're not delivering the milk every morning, and you're not doing your job, well then really you should get out of your job. If you are a journalist and you're not holding power to account and you're not being neutral, then get out of journalism, go into PR. And we see at the moment how many journalists are running into government jobs, which they know will be permanent and pensionable and funded by the taxpayer. And it's frightening what's going on at the moment. In relation to Veronica Guerin, I don't believe those journalists give a damn about Veronica Guerin. I really don't. It's quite obvious to me that if they did, they would look at the evidence that is there. They don't want to hear anything about it at all. Just attack, attack, attack.
Can I just say, I mean, Gemma, some of them were the journalists who were tweeting were close personal friends of Veronica. I just want to stress that let's separate the personalities from what's going on. There seems to be some sort of campaign rather than a nuanced, even if a nuanced attack on your suggestion of state collusion in the murder of Veronica Guerin. How is this going to end up now? I mean, you've extremely hostile press who are tweeting stuff that they would never print, and they're ignoring you in print, effectively. I mean, you were not offered a right of reply to the Jimmy Guerin piece on Drive Time last night, which I think other candidates might have been given an opportunity to speak.
Well, I think if you're going to do a hatchet job on a person on the state broadcaster, the very least you can do is say, look, we're going to be running this piece about you. It's very negative. We'd like to offer you the right of reply. I must have called RTE 20 times yesterday demanding a right of reply. But no, it's one law for them. And it's one law for the people who are trying to smear me, and another law for everybody else. That's not fairness. But there is no fair play in Ireland. And that's why I've decided to run for the presidency. You know, back to Veronica Guerin, and I did not raise this issue. It's nothing to do with my presidential campaign. The press have completely ignored the main message of my presidential campaign, which is about raising awareness about corruption and making sure that we live, trying to develop a democracy where integrity, transparency, and accountability are the cornerstones of our country. And that's what I'm talking about. But they don't want to talk about that because they know that I am holding them to account for failing the public interest and shielding scandals from view, such as the Terenure College one.
Right. Well, I'm a little bit biased in the sense that having worked on the site for so long, you do realise that there's nowhere for a lot of victims to go in terms of getting a hearing, getting a good hearing from a newspaper. they don't go. They go to RTE. They go to the Irish Times. They go, and then they end up like, as I said, we used to trade in cat videos. I mean, for victims of injustice to have to end up coming to us is a parlous state of affairs. And no matter what, how cocky everybody's on Twitter, the reality really is. And I'm not running for president. I got to say that the reality is that the press aren't really doing their job. And
look, I mean, every day I open my email and another deluge of citizens coming for help. I open my messenger on Facebook, it's the same story. I probably would have at least 1,000 cases of injustice on my books at the moment. It's such a shame that all of the time that these so-called journalists are spending attacking me, that they couldn't take on the concerns of some of these citizens who feel they have been denied justice by the state. And I want to say also that there are some really wonderful victims of state injustice who I would call my friends today, and they have, they see the value of this work, and they really do want justice for their loved ones. And you see the difference, the caliber of people like that and the true character. And that is really rewarding. These people have been to hell and back.
Now, Gemma, you didn't appear at Fingal County Council. You appeared at 3 other councils. Why did you choose one council over the other? Why not Fingal?
Yeah, well, I know it's difficult for the media to understand this simple concept of physics, but one cannot be in 4 or 5 places at the one time. Most of the work that I have done in relation to corruption, I don't think I have done any in Fingal. I am a Dubliner, I will say that. But I have done work in Monaghan, Kilkenny and Offaly, obviously. I chose not to go to Galway and Mayo and Fingal yesterday because it would have resulted in the death of somebody on the roads. I travelled all the way up to Monaghan, which took me about 2.5 hours. I then had to travel all the way back to Dublin and on to Kilkenny. And I then, in the lashing rain on a very, quiet, not a motorway, had to travel from Kilkenny up to Tullamore. And it was not a pleasant experience at all. And we all travelled yesterday. I know Peter Casey, I think he took his helicopter. But, we are doing our absolute best.
Right.
For, we're putting ourselves in the ring. It's not easy.
No.
For anyone. Well, some candidates are getting a very easy ride. It's not easy. It's not easy for people to put themselves forward for public service in this country. And we all have to get a fair play. I will be questioned on anything, but smearing me and trying to damage my campaign in the way the media are, they're just making fools of themselves at this stage.
Well, just to be absolutely certain, then, that Jimmy Guerin's appearance the rumours that he would make an address weren't behind your decision to not to appear before Fingal. Sorry, that was horrible, but you understand the question, I think.
Look, I think everyone who knows me knows I'm not easily frightened. Okay?
No.
I'm not easily bullied. Jimmy Guerin, Councillor Guerin, is a public representative and he should behave like one. And nobody will threaten me to speak out against injustice. But I will say finally that Mr. Guerin, or Councillor Guerin, has said that he wants his sister to rest in peace. Why does he keep bringing it up? I certainly don't want to talk about it.
Right. Okay. But having, okay, well, it's certainly his prerogative to say what he said. How would you have replied to him today? He described you in the strongest terms. He said that it was only Gilligan and yourself, which isn't actually true, who believed that the state were colluding had colluded in the murder.
Look,
in person, you would have responded.
How? Okay, again, I do not want to go into the Veronica Guerin case because it's nothing to do with my presidential campaign. In 2010, when I first started to investigate the Father Malloy murder, I was advised by a number of contacts that they believed Veronica had been on that case. And I do know that the night before, she revealed the corrupt Garda deal between Martin Cahill and John Traynor, whereby Gardaí dropped charges of fraud against John Traynor in return for the stolen Father Malloy file, which held documents that would be deeply embarrassing to the state. Her home was attacked for the first time. Now, people need to ask the question, in whose interests would it be for that file not to be disclosed, for that corrupt Garda deal not to be disclosed? I don't think it would, I don't think the criminals involved would have had any particular issue with it, all right? So that is on the record, that her home was attacked for the first time that night, okay, before she revealed huge Garda corruption. Now, with Veronica, the Garda, all of the work she did on corruption has been written out of Veronica's story by the media. I wonder why. I was informed by a member of An Garda Síochána that a state official had colluded with individuals who wanted to silence Veronica. Now, I've said this already. If people want me to keep saying it, I will keep saying it. This Garda is an honest and decent man. He does not make statements like that, willy-nilly, and I have no reason to disbelieve him. The reason this came up in the first place is because I was speaking at an anti-corruption meeting in Waterford a few weeks ago. I did not bring it up. It was brought up, and I was asked by a member of the public. It must have been it was late. I'd say, I would hazard a guess, it was after 10 o'clock. And this question was asked, and I very briefly said that it is my belief and what I want to say is that I believe there was collusion between individuals working for the state and criminals. So, I'm saying that because it was a member of An Garda Síochána who told me, and actually, since I made these allegations in the public domain, I am taken aback at the approaches that I have had from people saying you don't know the half of it. Right. But I don't want, I am focused on my presidential bid.
Of course. I just want to, just to close this, the address, the question you were asked at the Waterford thing, and the last week it was anti-vax, the trans agenda, and then that's for Veronica. Do you feel, and you're not getting sort of any right or reply on RT of any sort of decent length or whatever. Your campaign seems to be confirming your thesis in that speech. Like, I have to say that I feel, I mean, these journalists, individual journalists, are very nice people and lovely people. I think they're doing themselves immense damage. They're going for you in a way that actually proves that they're scared, in a way.
They have every reason to be scared because they've lost the respect of the public. And the public now are turning to social media to get their news, and their eyes are being opened. And they see increasingly how public money is being put into the mainstream media here, RTE in particular. You see an awful lot of government advertising at the moment. I try to avoid RTE because it is so biased and it is so misleading. But I have listened to it recently just in relation to my own presidential bid, just to see how biased they will be. And I noticed they are so reliant on ads about RTE. If you listen to the advertising on RTE at the moment, there's so many ads for RTE. There's so many ads funded by government, okay? So the public, and I'm trying to get them to waken up to this, the government is using public money to keep the likes of RTE and O'Brien Press and media going, right? And the Examiner and the Irish Times. And in return, the public are kept in the dark. I mean, they're being made fools of. It's insanity. And the public need to open their eyes. They're working hard. They're paying their taxes. They're putting their money into revenue every month. And revenue and the government are giving that money in part to mainstream media.
Well, I actually have to say that the public seem to have woken up, in my view. I mean, I've seen no evidence that they haven't woken up, but I have seen a lot of evidence that the media political bubble just hasn't woken up, or they're pre-internet in their thinking, and the rest of the country seem to be even struggling with slow Wi-Fi. They seem to be more, you know, of a post-internet frame of mind, you know, and the way they communicate is almost in a pre-internet way, and their attacks upon news seem to suggest that nobody else has the internet. We can't do our own research and look up. I mean, last night I looked up the Paul Ward trial, the special criminal court, the appeal, in which he won his appeal. Now that would have taken me back in the days of, you know, it would have taken me I probably wouldn't have, you know, gone down there. It would have taken me a week to find the thing, and the half empty, you know, the file would have been half, you know. So in terms of research, it's a much quicker process. And whilst they can say things on Twitter, it can be immediately found out that, you know, I mean, Jimmy Guerin's speech address to the Fingal County Council, he said that you had said that he had found 10 million in a shed. He said, you know, I never found 10 million in a shed. And then there's a story in the Irish Independent, I found 10 million in a shed. I mean, so it can be instantly sort of checked and stuff like that. I mean,
that's the thing. And look, you know, the media, the journalists, by and large, in the mainstream press are economic hostages. You know, they have their mortgages to pay, and they're caught, like, you know, so many citizens were caught by the economic crash. But I'm sorry, there's lots of scope to set up a very good journalistic career online now. You have been brave enough to do that, John, because you have the courage of your convictions. There's lots of opportunities there. You know, I see the likes of a journalist.
I must warn everybody, there's literally no money in it. I mean, literally. So
but there's great satisfaction. And, you know, look, I keep saying journalists should be more like nurses. You know, people who go into the trade because it's a vocation. Don't go into it because you want a lifestyle, for goodness sake. Do it because you want to be with the ordinary, decent people, not the elites. You don't want to hang around with elites. You don't want to become a celebrity. You want to hang around with the decent, ordinary people. And that, for me, has been the greatest reward in journalism. It really is. It's not about earning money.
Well, I found it pretty quickly that on the site that the people who were commenting were funnier, smarter, better than I was, you know, more intelligent, better writers than I was. It was like quite an awakening. It's like, oh Christ, that's why the letters page on newspapers are quarantined practically, because, you know, the contempt they feel for the reader. We got through Broadsheet. We got to know the people below the fold, so to speak, and they're smarter, funnier, and much wiser, and much more copped on, I think, just generally, than the press believe the Irish people are. Sorry.
Yeah, look, you know, and I think they do. There is a sense that they can control the way people think, and that is true, but not anymore, because we have the media. You know, and this whole, like, the Irish public, I think they have lost. They're learning now again, but journalism has been so damaged in this country that, you know, it's people are confused as to what it is. Like, they see these journalists in RTE doing celebrity interviews on the cover of magazines, talking about their children and talking about their life, and it's like they're such a celebrity journalists. I mean, it's cringe-inducing.
Well, I must take some responsibility that I was involved in setting up a VIP magazine. So
well, you got out of it, but that's okay, and there's a place for that, but not for journalists.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's an enormous amount of self-regard at the moment, but I think it's more or less out of fear as well, that they're, you know, the power is diminishing, and, you know, that's why I think that the attacks have been so strong, also against us as well, just by the by. So I can sympathise in a certain way as well. I'm not sure how far we can go with this in terms of. I think we've exhausted everything on the Veronica Guerin. I'm sure there's a lot of people who will say that there's questions I didn't ask, or Jimmy Guerin might have some issues with the questions I didn't ask, or some of the answers. But can I just say something, Gemma? The tone is really, really, really quite horrible at the moment in terms of on the Twitter and on social media regarding you. I mean, can I make an appeal to even all your most fervent enemies that you're a human being, and the motivations seem very, very good to me, and I've never seen any evidence otherwise.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to say that, and
look, I'm very tough. It's a tiny cohort of journalists who are behaving like this. I don't consider them journalists. But my loyalty is to the hundreds of people who've been in contact with me in recent weeks since I announced my nomination bid. And the support that I have had, and that's why I continue to say to people publicly, thank you for the support, because I just cannot respond individually. And it's not me, John. I want to keep making this point. It's because people see an opportunity here now for change in Ireland, a way of doing things differently, that we stop making the mistakes of the past and end up in this boom bust cycle the whole time. We've a tiny population. There's no reason why we cannot look after our tiny population and get it right for our country. And we know that corruption is at the root of everything that is wrong in Ireland. So this is why people are coming to me. And I am so emboldened every time the journalists of the media do one of their silly, crazy attacks on me. It backfires on them royally. Well, because yeah. none of it sticks. They can't back any of it up. And the public just say, God, what's wrong with these people? You know?
And sometimes it smacks of professional jealousy rather than, the subject at hand. Can I just ask you, Gemma, because in the chat pit, somebody has asked, or we've been asked a couple of times, there have been negative reports of how you made your case to Clare County Council. Do you have any comments about this? Very polite question. Just
in relation to?
In relation to, it's a right to change MW rights. Gemma, there have been negative reports of how you made your case to Clare County Council. Do you have any comments about this?
He'll have to expand on that. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah. I mean, I will say typically there is hostility from Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. But why wouldn't there be? I'm telling people to stop voting for those two parties because they've let us down. They've had control of the country since the foundation of the state. It's not working. Get off the political landscape. I have no doubt that there are many good people in Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. But it's time they started to say, let's take what was good about our parties back and stop these people who are destroying the parties. But for me, it's not party first, it's country first. And we can see how Fine Gael have shown themselves to be so lacking in compassion. Towards people who are really struggling in this country at the moment. So yes, I mean, I'm sure in every county council I've been before, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael hate me.
Yeah, well, we've been criticised for not giving you the same sort of level of critical analysis that you've been got elsewhere. And I think apart from actually kicking you in the face, I don't think we could compare it to the level of debate. We really, really encourage your nomination because
thank you.
We want people to let the people decide.
Let the people decide.
Like we genuinely want Jimmy Smith to actually be in the Oris because he plays guitar better than you, and frankly, we'd like to see "Stairway to Heaven" being played in the Phoenix Park. Gemma,
yes.
There's again so much that we're going to be criticised for, and you're going to be asked questions about. Again, we hope to have you back on if you can.
Yeah, very happy anytime. I'm always very happy to answer questions and to be given the opportunity to answer them. I think the problem with RTE is that they don't want to hear the answers, and that's the problem, really, you know.
Okay.
So I'm very happy. I'd love to discuss my actual manifesto, not these side issues. And, you know, I want to thank the public again for all of their support. It's been fantastic.
Okay, and to be fair, now we heard a lot of your manifesto on Thursday. It was
absolutely.
So, and we reach out to all of the candidates and hopefuls, and if they feel they're not getting the right reply on OTE, or if they feel they're not getting any platform at all, just call us and we'll do the same thing. And we'll leave it there, Gemma. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thanks for everything.
Thank you to the few hundred viewers who are watching, and the ones who'll be watching in the future. And hope they'll be able to make a more fair and balanced opinion of you, Gemma. Okay? Thank you so much.
See you soon.
Maybe you'll see you tomorrow morning with Jimmy Smith. Okay?